Breakfast and brilliant ideas, coffee and conversation, we're serving up that and much more at IBJ Media's events. Join us at an upcoming event and kickstart your day with fresh ideas and new connections. Check out our event lineup and register now at ibj.com/RSVP.
A world-class university coming off a national football championship. Boating and enjoying the outdoors? Yep, Bloomington has that too.
7 years ago, the mill opened its doors with a simple message: build and nurture Bloomington's startup ecosystem. Since then, we've supported dozens of entrepreneurs, created hundreds of jobs, and proven that Bloomington can compete with any community in America when it comes to innovation and ambition.
Meet John Fernandez, one of the key leaders playing a major role in driving Bloomington and the South Central Indiana region forward through innovation, education, quality of life, and now public-private partnerships. He's my guest this week on the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. And I'm pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by John Fernandez, the CEO of Amplify Bloomington, a very newly christened organization, an important organization for Bloomington and South Central Indiana, to be sure. John, a former mayor of Bloomington, as well as had a number of leadership roles in the community and beyond. And John, thanks for taking the time to join me on the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Gerry.
Amplify Bloomington. Let's get right to the heart of really some exciting things happening in Bloomington, and that is Amplify Bloomington. For those who don't know, and many don't because literally we're just a week or two out from the announcement, describe Amplify Bloomington and why it's important.
Yeah, so really it's much more than a name change, but it's the natural evolution of the Dimension Mill. So as you may recall, the Dimension Mill was started about almost 8 years ago as a home for entrepreneurs, a co-working space. It's done, just incredible success in terms of supporting entrepreneurs and helping companies grow here. Over the last several years, the mission of the mill kind of expanded as we took on responsibility for the development of the Trades District, which is Bloomington's innovation hub in essentially downtown Bloomington.
Yeah. Hey, John, let me interrupt you because that's a good point. Describe kind of the background there when you talk about the Trades District and how that was developed in the mill and all those types of things.
Yeah.
Because those were very important as they came about several years ago. And now, as you say, this is the next evolution. But talk about those beginning instances of where things were.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you phrase it that way because I think it is a really important part of the story. So, if you think about the Trades District, it's about a 12-acre site in downtown Bloomington that was originally a home of the Showers Brothers Furniture Factory. And Showers Brothers, a very innovative company. When they started, they grew into becoming the largest producer of furniture in America. And they achieved that success based on innovation. They were one of the first companies to introduce veneer, which brought down the price of furniture dramatically and enabled them to, grow to the company that they were. They closed in 1958. A lot of global competition, the industry changed. It's a good story about, if you don't continue to innovate, your competitors catch up and creates issues. So this land was really undeveloped for a long period of time. Indiana University owned it for a number of years. During the Cruzan administration, the city of Bloomington acquired what's now the Trades District. And then during the Hamilton administration, a lot of infrastructure investments were made to create this innovation district. So as part of the state-designated certified technology park, which is much larger than the Trades District, it's in total, I think, about 65 acres, but the Trades District itself is 12. So then in 2018, the city made a decision to renovate the mill, the Dimension Mill building, which is about 20,000 square foot historic building. Started out as co-working, very quickly became a center for entrepreneurship, under the leadership of Pat East, who just did a fabulous job. We launched the Flywheel Fund, which is our early stage investment fund. We're now on Fund 5 in supporting tech-based companies. So there's been all this evolution of the work. But what we realized, and the community kind of got together last year and thought about where are we as a community. And we felt that we needed to do more to send a stronger signal to the market about who we are and what we're trying to achieve. And so that was the evolution of the Dimension Mill Inc., which is our corporate entity, becoming Amplify Bloomington. But it's much more than a name change. The name is important. I think it's a strong name. It really signifies what we're trying to do, which is creating this new civic alliance where you have all the stakeholders from our key institutions buying into this vision, literally supporting through partnership, through financial support, a new kind of operating model where we're all aligned and we're saying, look, here's the big issues we want to tackle. We're going to do it together. So, some of the issues are things that we operationalize through our programming, through what we do, but some of the key initiatives will be led by other members of our alliance. We're not, but the goal is that everybody's pointing towards the same North Star. We have to increase populations, especially in the 25 to 50-year-old demographic. We need to raise wages. We know that tech-based jobs can have a premium in terms of compensation, so we want to be the drivers of that. And then we also have to elevate the brand of Bloomington in our region because it's not where it needs to be. And so that's what the Alliance is all kind of rallied around, and now we're moving forward together.
You mentioned the brand, very important. What is the potential in your view there as you think about the brands that have been created around the country? Research
Yeah.
Triangle Park in North Carolina, the Boston area, Silicon Valley, Austin. You can go on down the list of these innovation-based
Yeah.
areas. Is that the goal to create something like that?
Well, yes is the short answer, but it's bigger than just Bloomington. So as it relates to our region and our kind of MSA, if you will, we know that the strongest brand is Bloomington, even though our work extends beyond the geography of our corporate boundaries. But that's the strongest brand we have in the area that we need to lean into. When we think about the broader, if you think about it in the context like a research triangle, I mean, really, we're part of this corridor from 16 Tech in downtown Indianapolis down to Crane. That corridor along 69 has so much potential for growth. Now that the highway's completed, we're connected to the capital city and in ways that we never were before in terms of just the ease of travel, access to the international airport. We already collaborate with many of the institutions in Indianapolis, and we have a very strong partnership with our friends at Crane. So I think we're really well positioned to see some serious growth along that corridor, and that's going to inure to the benefit not just of Bloomington, but this whole South Central region.
Talk about collaboration with Amplify Bloomington, public sector, private sector, academic communities all coming together,
Mhm.
Cook Medical, IU, among others. Why is the time, in your view, the time right for this initiative now?
Well, there's a couple things. One is that there's a sense of urgency. The community's at an inflection point. We've seen some challenges, from a population perspective, from a wage perspective. So on the one hand, there's recognition that we need to do something different because what we've been doing for the last decade isn't achieving the same kind of results that we expect. The second part is that, we just have a unique moment where there's incredible alignment in the leadership of our community. In the past, if you think about the kind of three-legged stool of, the local government, the university, the corporate sector, there's been times where Bloomington had maybe two of the three legs aligned, but not all three. Right now, we have all three, and we have to seize that opportunity. Plus, we see tremendous opportunity in the key sectors that we're targeting. We talked about Crane, but when we think about gov tech and defense tech, there's a lot of growth opportunities. And we've seen that here in terms of the number of new establishments, the amount of employment, the investment that's happening. That's a real opportunity with the transformation of all of our economies with AI. The Luddy School, computing engineering is just literally 0.6 miles from where I'm sitting. They are a powerhouse of talent and research. We want to grow that here. We also see with the biotech and health tech, there's always been strong companies here. We need to tap into the innovation side of that to spin out more companies. And then we've always had a strong creative economy here. When we think about the Jacobs School of Music, the authors that live in Bloomington, other kinds of artists, that brings a lot of I guess, identity to a place that it's not just, technology, but there's this whole lifestyle. There's the amenities, there's the arts, there's the things that make it an interesting place to live. And, today, I think, Gary, the big thing I've seen change in the world of economic development is that today we're competing as much for people as we are for companies. I mean, just the price of entry to starting companies is way lower than it used to be, especially in a knowledge and tech-based economy. You don't need massive amounts of capital to start a company that can scale into millions of dollars in annual revenue and very high valuations. So people can do that anywhere. So if we want to compete for those kinds of entrepreneurs, you got to have a community that's a great place to live. People want to have fun things to do. They want to have really good schools if they have children. They want to have quality of life. And Bloomington, Monroe County has that in spades.
Yeah.
We just need to get more aggressive about telling our story and recruiting the right kind of talent to come build the economy and the community that we all desire.
Yeah, and you mentioned timing being so right for this. It probably doesn't hurt that IU's football success has put a national spotlight, on
It definitely does not hurt. I mean, there's a lot of energy. I mean, and all joking aside, it's been fantastic. When you think about Bloomington or, IU having the largest living alumni base, there are a lot of people all over the world, all over the country that have very strong emotional attachments to our city. Some of them we wanted to be boomerangs and bring them back to help build the next chapter of their careers and professions and to do it here. But they can also be investors and they can be ambassadors to help build leads for us so that we can build companies here. But we're already seeing a lot of that kind of, positive vibes. You can't buy the kind of attention that you get when you go on a run like the Hoosiers did this year in football.
Yeah, for sure. As you look and sometimes I think the word transformational is overused, but
Yeah.
in this context, as you think about the history of Bloomington, that manufacturing base with RCA and Otis Elevator, you can go on down the list of those great companies that for many years provided great wages and great support for families, many of them gone now.
Yeah.
Is this that moment that can be the transformation to recover from what was that once vibrant manufacturing economy?
It's part of it. I mean, it's hard to replace. I mean, back when I was mayor, Gary, we had I think 11,000 manufacturing jobs, and they tended to be union jobs, great family wages, families, generations of families were able to build really great lives here. It's hard to replace those kinds of jobs at scale. Cook certainly leaned in and grew here. We still have some strong players with Novo Nordisk, with now Simtrop and Boston Scientific and just west of here. So there is a base, but it's a different kind of base. You know, it takes a lot of startups to replace a General Electric.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. Our companies here that are really thriving tend to be more in the 50 employees to 100 employees, not, 3,000 employees. So it takes a lot more of them. But the flip side of that is if you're growing companies here and they're successful, it creates wealth. It creates entrepreneurs who become very vested in their community. They're the folks who lean into supporting many of the nonprofits, some of the quality of life investments, whether it's in music or other arts and our park systems. But we need that kind of growth of companies and entrepreneurs who become our key investors. I mean, I always point to, like, if you think about in life sciences, we have three major players in Bloomington itself. One's Cook, one's Novo Nordisk, and one's Simtra. Cook, they grew here. They are in and of Bloomington. And there's very few parts of our community where you don't see some element of that family or that company touching. That's very different when your headquarters is in Europe. I mean, or in both cases, I think Simtra is part of a German private equity group. Great company. We love what they're doing. They're creating lots of opportunities, but it's not the same as having the founder CEO living here and owning what's happening in their backyard. So that's why we want to create these companies here that scale here, that really become part of the fabric of our community.
Yeah. How does that in practice, how will Amplify do that? Will support the startups and entrepreneurs and those smaller companies that you want to not only see start but grow?
Well, see, that's, the good thing is we've got a really nice foundation through the programming that we do at the mill. So the mill is still the mill as a physical location. The programming is very focused on entrepreneurship growth. So we have programs that are focused on helping, we call it 90 days to scale. So we run cohorts where we're helping companies accelerate their growth. And that's through coaching and some peer-to-peer support. We have programs focused on young collegiate entrepreneurs or startup summer initiative. We have the Flywheel Fund that's continuing to invest in companies. We're doing a new initiative with the university that's focused on faculty and postdoc entrepreneurship. So there's a lot of programmatic support. I think the most important thing we do is we have a community of experienced business folks, entrepreneurs who can help that next round of startups be successful. What we've not done very well in the past is to link these startups to the more mature companies in our community. So as we activate those clusters, industry clusters that I mentioned, bringing together the leadership and some of the technical folks and others from our large corporates into this community in a more deliberate way. We have the opportunity to connect the innovation to some of the established companies, and that creates a lot more opportunity for collaboration, for co-investment, for customer development, and in some cases, strategic acquisition for entrepreneurs.
hmm Yeah. How do you talk about creating a brand for Bloomington? Is the brand for Bloomington a college town, which obviously it's been for some time, an innovation hub, a combination of both? How do you go about that process of branding Bloomington and South Central Indiana?
Yeah, those are two different things. I mean, South Central India is a big, very diverse place. When we think about the Bloomington MSA, which is really Monroe County, Greene, Owen, yeah, the university is clearly a big piece of that. But the brand we're trying to build is this a place where you can, build meaningful things, whether it's a company, a profession, a life, because we have all those ingredients to make it a great place to be. We lean into, Indiana University as a flagship, university for the state of Indiana. It'd be a very different place without Indiana University. So we definitely want to lean into that. But at the same time, the university leadership will tell you that they need a very strong, vibrant Bloomington beyond, the sample gates to be able to attract the kind of faculty and researchers and support that they need to build that enterprise. So we're very interconnected. I mean, it's kind of goofy, but if you think about it, if you look at the Amplify Bloomington brand, is purple on our logo, and that's deliberate because we're taking basically the red of the university, the blue of the city, bringing them together, and that's where the strength is.
That's good. That's good. You mentioned earlier, Crane, as you look more broadly in the region, and it has been such a center of innovation for so long and technology firepower, now beginning to get to think, come into the spotlight a little bit more. How important is Crane when you look at the overall picture, the potential of this tech hub, this corridor, if you will? How important is Crane to this future vision?
Well, I think it's huge, Gary. I mean, when you start thinking about dual technology innovation, there's just phenomenal opportunities. The base has really evolved over the last, couple of decades. They're more outward looking. There's a lot more companies that are locating at Westgate, just outside the base. We see companies here. I mean, literally, in the Forge, there's a couple of companies that are very involved with defense sector work. We have other startups at the mill that are kind of dual commerce companies, dual use companies. There's hardly a department at the university that doesn't have some relationship either with, the Department of Defense, state, others. So that's a big opportunity that's only going to continue to grow. And now that the corridor's in place, the governor's pushing hard on this whole drone initiative.
Right.
I think, we are really well placed to do some incredible work. And we've got a terrific airport. Monroe County Airport is a hell of an asset. And with the leadership out there with Carlos and team, they're really focused on attracting companies that want to have access to those runways for testing, for development on the R&D side. We're really well set up to take advantage of the moment. And fortunately, everybody's working together around some big ideas that can help move that forward.
Yeah, you mentioned having a great airport there locally, but I know I've talked to several people, who talk about the I-69 and what that has done to that commute time to Indianapolis International, and
Oh, yeah.
how that's made that much more accessible.
Oh my gosh. I mean, as somebody who spent, a decade on airplanes, what a difference.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. When I lived out in DC, the amount of time it would take me to get from Bethesda to Reagan National was about the same amount of time it takes me to get from Bloomington to Indianapolis International, and it's a hell of a lot easier drive, So
Yeah.
it is a phenomenal difference. It just makes it so much accessible. So if you are like growing companies, that we want companies to build here that become global companies, you got to have access to transportation nodes to get where your customers are. So that's a real, a great asset to be able to say, look, you can build your company here. You can go on an airplane in Indianapolis in about 55, 60 minutes. And in the scheme of things, that's a pretty short, travel time compared to a lot of other markets.
As we wrap up with John Fernandez, we'll talk a little bit about his background and his journey to where he is today, and also what's next. That's when the Business and Beyond podcast returns. Stay with us.
As a bank, PNC prides itself on being boring. But the truth is they couldn't be more excited to serve the dynamic Indianapolis community. For nearly 160 years, they've quietly toiled away to deliver brilliant results for their equally brilliant clients. They have dedicated PNC teams throughout the local area, all ready to do the boring work to help you unlock your own brilliance. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865. PNC Bank, National Association member FDIC.
And welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week is John Fernandez, former Bloomington Mayor, the current CEO of Amplify Bloomington, an initiative that has just launched with some very ambitious goals in growing the Bloomington economy and really the regional economy as well. John, I mentioned you're a former mayor, two-term mayor of Bloomington. And when you left the mayor's office, you went national, if you will, in terms of an economic development role in the Obama administration.
Yes.
And that was, remind me, because that was with, were you an assistant? What was your title out there?
Yeah. So, when I left the mayor's office, I was in the private sector for about 3 years, and then I had an opportunity to join the Obama administration in the first term. So I was the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Economic Development, which meant basically I ran the U.S. Economic Development Administration.
Perfect. Okay.
So I did that through really through most of the first term. I left the administration during the, just right before the beginning of the reelection cycle. Like I didn't really, it's hard to do anything new during an election year.
Yeah.
So I had an opportunity to join a law firm that's now called Denton's. At the time, it was S&R Denton. And I was a global chief innovation officer, did that for 11 years. We grew the firm from a modest transatlantic law firm into the largest law firm in the world. So it was an incredible opportunity. Worked with some super smart leaders, with Elliot Portnoy, the CEO, Joe Andrew, who many folks in Indiana remember was a global chairman. And so I worked with Elliot and Joe for a number of years of creating a different kind of law firm.
Yeah.
We started a venture fund that was focused. We were the first fund that was focused specifically on legal tech. Did a lot of really interesting work around the world, but an opportunity that just was really perfectly timed to be able to come join the mill and work with. I worked for Pat East in leading the trades district development and the building of the forge. And then when Pat decided to step down, I had an opportunity to become the CEO, and I couldn't be happier.
So, John, I know you're an IU grad. Did you grow up in Bloomington? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Ohio, but I grew up in Kokomo.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so my father still lives there. My sister, is still there with her husband. But yeah, I was there until I came to Bloomington. I'm the youngest in my family, and I was the one who rebelled and didn't go to Purdue.
Good. Had it
Most of
done.
my sisters did, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I ended up coming to Bloomington, and I didn't really know why, other than I wanted to go to Bloomington. Get
Yeah.
some friends here, and it turned out to be just an incredible journey for me.
Your background at IU, having graduated from Indiana University, that connection to Bloomington, does that make what you're doing now with Amplify Bloomington and this vision maybe a little personal to you?
Oh, it's absolutely personal, Gary. I mean, Indiana University changed my life. It's just an incredible, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I mean, I'm first generation, America. And my family, my parents came here when they were kids as war refugees from Spain. I was kind of like struggling to find my place. At the time, the late Charles Bonds was the dean at SPIA. He kind of took me under his arm and gave me a lot of direction. So I have a super strong connection to the university. And then, my family, met my wife in law school. My kids were raised here, and I've worked in other places, lived in DC and done some things, but Bloomington is really special to me. And, I'm in a place where in my career where I can pick and choose a little bit, but I can't think of a more purposeful way to kind of write out my last chapter is to get this community to the level I think it can achieve. And I've always been Bloomington's biggest fan. I'm also one of its most, I'm a hard grader. And I think that we've underperformed. And I'm just thrilled that we have such strong support from Bryan Hall, the City Hall, the corporate boardrooms, where everybody really kind of recognizes that this is a moment that we can seize. And if we all kind of lock arms and stay focused on the work, we can have a hell of an impact in changing the trajectory of the community. And it's a pretty exciting time.
Where did your desire to serve come from? You were obviously mayor, you worked in the Obama administration, your current role, leadership roles in community. Where did that come from?
It's a genetic defect. No, I don't know. My it's kind of big. It sounds over the top, but in my family, there was always this sense of you have a commitment to be engaged. they didn't have elections. They had a fascist regime that they left. And it was like, you get the government that you deserve and you got to be engaged. And so at the youngest age, I mean, we were always involved in thinking and talking about what's going on in the world. Um, I just had a natural inclination for some of that. And then when I got my undergraduate degree and then graduate degree at SPIA, what's now a Nil School, it really reinforced a lot of that. And, so I had a master's in city management. I got elected to city council when I was in graduate school, got reelected when I was in law school. But I don't know, it's just one of those things I've always felt kind of compelled to do. When I ran for mayor, I mean, I was pretty open about what I wanted to do. And in part, it was because, I felt like I wanted to live in a place that had incredible amenities, that had a really active and vibrant downtown. And I figured if that's what I wanted, I might as well lean in and try and, get into a role where I could have a big impact.
Yeah. John, as you look out let's say 10 years down the road, what does success, when you think about the goals of Amplify Bloomington, what does Bloomington look like 10 years down the road?
Well, I don't think it'll necessarily look radically different. I think you'll see more density, population will grow. I think we have a lot of upside in terms of opportunities to become a larger population. I think we'll have some brand companies here that people will know. Our goal, as I think I mentioned before, Gary, with the programming that we're doing at the Mill, we want to help 10 companies get from $1 million in annual revenue to $10 million in annual revenue by 2030. That doesn't sound like a big deal, but that's really hard to do. I mean, when you're a startup, to get to $1 million is a challenge, to get to 10 is another level. But if you achieve that, the valuation of those companies are substantial, and that just creates a lot of flywheel effect for reinvestment in the next round of companies in our community, the job opportunities. So I think we're going to, 10 years from now, I think there'll be flags here that people will recognize in terms of corporate brands. We'll see bigger population. And when people talk about great cities to live in and to build in, Bloomington's going to be in that name of cities. We have that potential. Everybody knows about Ann Arbor. People know about the Research Triangle. People know about Boulder, other places. There's no reason why Bloomington isn't in the same sentence as those communities, because we have all the ingredients to do it.
And John Fernandez will be following that story, to be sure. Really appreciate you taking the time to join me. Appreciate and thank you for your leadership too, because it is so important to Bloomington.
Well, thanks, Gary. You've been connected to what we're doing down here for a long time. The reporting you do, I think, is really important, because we always hear this. It came up last night at the IU game, that whole, people were making introductions at this dinner thing I was at, and it's all this kind of like humble, I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur. I was like, serial entrepreneur, hell, we've created these massive companies. We've got to just tell those stories over and over so that people feel like this is a place they can do that. And sometimes we're just a little bit too shy, and there's nothing wrong with tooting our horns a little bit.
Couldn't agree more, John. John Fernandez, the CEO at Amplify Bloomington, an exciting initiative that has launched now, and one that we'll be following as well. John, thanks again.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gerry.
All right, and thank you for joining us on this episode of the Business and Beyond podcast, presented by PNC. We're a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond, and you can download all of our episodes and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gerry Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Whether it's healthcare innovation, major infrastructure, or global sports impact, Inside Indiana Business with Gerry Dick tells the stories of Indiana's groundbreakers and game changers. It's the must-listen show for business, civic, and community leaders across the state. Subscribe and listen wherever you get your podcasts or at ibjpodcast.com.
Thanks for listening to this IBJ Media podcast. You're probably going to remember this ad. Do you know why? Podcast advertising works. 85% of listeners recalled hearing an ad during a podcast, and 70% of podcast listeners have acted after hearing an ad. So whether you're looking to be heard across the entire IBJ Media Podcast Network, sponsor one of our shows, or just start with a 30-second ad, IBJ Media can help. Contact advertise@ibj.com to learn more.